How's it going, guys? In today's video, I'm going to show you how to convert your Cycloid LC into a Zippy Lucha by installing your Lucha blade onto the Cycloid LC handles. So to start, let's take a 2mm hex key and begin unscrewing the pivots. We'll remove the pivots and the bearings. There's going to be some bearings and washers that fall out and some that don't fall out. So let's just go ahead and make sure all of that's out of the handles, as well as the blade. We'll do one handle at a time to keep things simple. So what you'll want to do is separate the washers that fell out of the handle versus the blade. One of the easy ways to tell if you confuse them is the washers that fall out of the blade, which is here, has a wider flat area than this washer, which fell out of the handle. Another nice easy way to tell is, in general, these will be marked. It's not here, so let me show you how they'll be marked with a Sharpie. The washers on the blade should have a black dot like that. I'll mark the other one as well. All right, so to begin, we're going to take the Zen pins that came with the kit. You're going to use the Zen pins I send as opposed to the stock Lucha Zen pins, and we're going to install them in the handles. Go ahead and put the Zen pin in a pair of pliers, and we're going to bend the handle up at the pivot, separate it like that, and insert the Zen pins. Just like that. All right, now what we'll do is partially insert the pivot here, and I'm going to begin by inserting the race washer that was on the blade. It has a black dot. It does not matter which orientation you place this race washer in, but to avoid making mistakes, it's a good habit to always have the raceway facing the blade in case you make a mistake later on, which you'll see. So I'm going to put that race washer in first by bending up the handle gently and sliding it on. All right, now I'm going to take one of these race washers, and this was originally in the Cycloid handle, and it does not have a black dot, and raceway facing up towards the blade, I'm going to slide it on. Perfect. All right, now we'll take a bearing. Bearing has two sides. I like to have this side facing the blade and this hollow side facing the handle. So I'm going to have this facing up right now, and I'm going to just put that, slide that on. So this is what the stack looks like now, and actually my pivot slipped out, not a problem, we'll slip it back in. This is what the stack looks like now. All right, now we're going to slide the blade on, and the way I'm going to do that is lifting up the handle. It's going to flex, and that is so that you can do this. Perfect. Now we're going to install the other washer, and again, this side, this sort of flat, smooth side, is going to face the blade. And we've got two washers left for this blade. This is going to go in the handle, and this is going to touch the bearing. So the one without the Sharpie is going to touch the bearing, and we're going to be having the raceway always face the blade and the flat side facing the handle. So let's go ahead and install that. It's a little trickier to do on camera. Let's see. Just flexing that handle and sliding that race washer onto the pivot. Perfect. All right, we'll do the last one. Again, this race washer has the black mark on it, so it's going to be touching the handle. And it doesn't matter the orientation of this race washer, but to avoid making mistakes, we're just going to have the raceway always facing the blade, because what we don't want to happen is you accidentally install this race washer with the flat side facing the blade. If you do that, your Cycloid LC or your Zippy Lucha will not be assembled properly and you're going to have issues. So let's just go ahead and install this last one here. My pivot fell out again. Let's replace that. I always recommend actually just keeping the whole thing on the table so the pivot doesn't fall out, but I'm trying to give you guys a good camera angle. All right, perfect. And now let's just wiggle this around a bit. We're gonna make sure, oops, sorry. We're gonna make sure that these end pins still lining up and all of the washers are lining up with the cavities inside the handles. And I'm just gonna push the handles together so the pivot pops out like that. And now I'm gonna put my thumb on this side here and tighten it. You might want to tape your blade for this part. You can see I've got a sharp blade touching my hand, but I'm being careful. You should tape your blade though. All right, now I'm just pushing the screw in while tightening it down, and until I feel some resistance. This is a little too tight, so at the end I'll go through and make sure we have a perfect tune. But for now, let's move on to the other handle. We're going to repeat the same steps. I'm going to unscrew these pivots. Separate the washers that were on the blade, which are here. And for accuracy, I'm going to go ahead and mark them, because when these ship to you, they will be marked with Sharpie. All right, and the other bearings and washers, whoops, and the handle will just remove. You might need to lever them out with a hex key or some other pokey object. Or you can just gently bang them out like what I'm doing. Ta-da! All right. We can set the blade aside, the cycloid blade, we won't be using that. And we'll install the Zen pin in the handle, just like we did before. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and insert the pivot. And we'll start with these race washers that were touching the blade. They're marked in black. Put that in the handle, slide it over the pivot. And then we'll do, whoops, yeah, perfect. Okay, then we'll do one of the other washers. Raceways are facing up right now towards the blade. Install a bearing, flat side up. All right, now we're going to slide the blade in. The next bearing, smooth side, facing down towards the blade. The next race washer, raceway facing down towards the blade. And then the last race washer marked with the Sharpie. This was touching the cycloid blade. And to be thorough, raceway facing down, so there's no mistakes. Push that on. All right. And now what I'm going to do is just kind of gently wiggle things around until I can push these two sides of the handle together. All right. And now with my thumb pushing against this black side of the handle, I'm going to push the screw in and screw it in. All right. I screwed it in until I felt some resistance, and both of these handles are now over tightened. So now I'm just gonna back the screw off a little bit, do another handle test, and I'm gonna do that until I'm happy with the swing. The first step should be actually adding lubricant. So let's go ahead and do that. If you watched the Cycloid maintenance video, you saw you can actually add lubricant by, in the open position, putting the needle tip of your lubricant applicator in this cavity here. When you're using a Lucha blade, you can also slip in the needle tip through the horn, like so. Both are totally fine ways to lubricate. I'm going to loosen it a tad more. You can just loosen it to your personal preference, and that feels good. I'm going to just test the play. Perfect, no play. There will be some handle flex, plastic flex, but there shouldn't be any pivot play. If you have pivot play or your pivots don't look like this, probably you installed a raceway upside down. So you'll need to disassemble and make sure that all of the grooved raceway sides of the washers are facing the blade.
Print complete.
And I'm just loosening this handle until I have a perfect swing. That feels good, and no play. All right. So we'll do a test here. There should be no pivot play there. Good. And no tap. If you have tap, you did something wrong. Either it's installed incorrectly, or the pivots are not tightened enough, or you need to lubricate and retighten. All right. Now, one thing we haven't done yet is change out the spacer weights so we can accommodate the different weight and balance of the Lucha blade. So I'm going to use a cloth, and I'm just going to wiggle the spacer out and then twist it out like that. And you can add up to 3 tungsten balls to the bottom here, which you can learn by watching the balance adjustment video. But what I recommend to start with, until you can find your preferred balance, is you can tinker around with it. What I like to do is just put in this 4th tungsten cube. Kind of the baseline balance of when things start to feel nice for the Cycloid LC is 3 cubes for the Cycloid, and 4 cubes for the Lucha. And you can add or remove the weights, and whoops, put them in different spots to adjust the leverage to suit your liking. So there's still room for 3 more tungsten balls that you could add here. I actually recommend removing the cube to do that, but you can fit at least 1 in without the cube. Anyway, once you find your preference, you can go ahead and reinstall the spacer. Make sure you do the same weights for both spacers. I'm going to reinstall the spacer by twisting it in. I'm going to twist the spacer so that the jimping lines up here, and then I'm going to push it in. And then I would just repeat that procedure on the other spacer as well. All right, thanks for watching. You just converted your Zippy Cycloid LC into a Zippy Lucha. Thanks for watching. Happy flipping.